The past 18 months, while extremely difficult, has changed the way we interact in social settings and in the workplace. I'm Lizzie West, and as I approach the end of university and start to enter the world of work, I want to find out exactly how the pandemic has affected Gen Z throughout the lockdowns and legislations, and how this has affected our prospects going forward. During this transitioning period between the ages of 15 and 23, young people have to make sometimes life-changing decisions, such as where and what they want to study, or what other career they want to invest their time into. And in such a time of uncertainty, many of these decisions have been made for them. When tackling such a current and unprecedented topic, I knew I'd have to do some research first. I spent a good amount of time researching the effects on Gen Z, and what I found was that they were most affected in two areas. The first being employment.
What we're really talking about, the group that have been hardest hit are GenZ. They're staying lots longer in casual jobs. They don't have permanent contracts, and they're particularly prevalent in roles like retail and hospitality, which has obviously been worse hit by the financial crisis.
The other area was, of course, education, where many students were forced to learn from home when studying for exams or a degree. Now that I've seen the research and statistics from various reports on COVID and young people, I'm getting an idea for how the pandemic and various legislations put in place to stop the spread has had an effect on Gen Z. But I want to know what Gen Z think and hear their stories firsthand. I've joined about 20 Facebook groups created for Gen Z discussion to see if anyone's willing to share their story. I am completely overwhelmed by the response we've received in just 24 hours. Like I said, we put the advert up yesterday and already I've heard back from about 20 people. So I think it's worth setting up a few Zoom calls to hear about people's experiences. Over the next week, I spoke to over 70 young people. Even after seeing the unemployment statistics, I perhaps naively thought that most of the issues would be educational and failed to realise how quickly and severely some of Gen Z were hit. The first person I spoke to was Connor, who's a freelancer that works behind the scenes in events and in theatres and had projects set up throughout the coming year.
Rewinding the clock a bit, going back to the mid of March 2020, I had loads of things lined up throughout the year. I got emails, phone calls from clients saying, sorry, we're not going ahead.
Obviously, this would have had a financial effect on you. How reliant were you on these projects?
I lost a lot of money within the space of about 2 weeks. Thousands of pounds of potential work that just went down the drain. For one, it just made me feel very depressed at the time. I had no money coming in. The only thing I could do was go onto universal credit. I do not like being on benefits. Unfortunately, I had to do it. That was the space of about 2 weeks.
For someone just starting out in your industry, the chance to build up your experience is a huge opportunity, and you kind of rely on the people you met and the experiences on the last job to help you find the next job. And if you've been without work for a long time and you don't have those connections anymore, it could have a big implication on your future in terms of this career. Is that something you're worried about?
For an entry level person coming into the industry, that would have been pretty good to have all that work behind me, but of course I'd lost it all.
The next person I spoke to was Jess, who hopes to find a job in media. Even though she graduated with a first and has experience in student radio, filming events, producing music videos, and other things she took on to help herself find a job, she's still struggling.
So I think I've applied for definitely nearly 300.
That surprises me because you've got all this experience, you came out with great grades, it's obvious that you're hardworking, determined and talented, and it's not like you're not putting yourself out there, you're applying for a lot of jobs. Why do you think you're struggling so much?
I think they're expecting a lot from people within entry-level jobs. They say they're entry-level, but then they're asking for 3 years experience.
You got quite far in some of the interview processes. What did your feedback say, or did you get feedback?
I didn't receive any feedback, which is obviously really, really upsetting because, you've got so far out of over 1,000 applicants and you get to the top 20 and you still can't, get feedback. I'm still applying for jobs because I can't stop. Why did I spend all that money and all that extra time around my degree for it not to count for a junior role?
Of course, education was mentioned, and I must say, from someone that comes from such a supportive university, I was quite shocked at some of the things other universities consider to be an adequate education. I made the decision to make these students anonymous, but they shared with me their experiences this year.
One of my lecturers literally sent us the PowerPoint with the slides on, the notes she was going to use in the lecture, and then basically, but there you go, that's the lecture done. You sort of download it, give it a quick look over, and none of it goes in. It's supposed to, I think it was meant to be like a 2-hour lecture.
Doing things online, there was so much less support that I almost literally felt to quit university, stop there. We didn't start the online lessons till September.
Were you going to lectures at all?
There was no lectures. There was a couple of practicals, but no lectures at all.
I was quite shocked at some of the things I'd heard from people that had reached out regarding the documentary, so I headed to the streets of Birmingham to get a broader view.
Have all your courses been online pretty much since the pandemic?
Yes.
Everything's been online.
Even now?
Yeah, no, I still have yet to go to my college. Yeah, everything's been online.
When you leave college and you're needing to get a job, do you feel like you've learned enough?
For me, yeah, no, it's I don't feel ready. I don't feel like I have any hands-on experience or any actual knowledge of what I'm doing. Like, I know my theory, but when it comes to actually doing what I want to do, I have no idea what I'm doing, really.
It's very confusing, very worrying. It's harder, especially coming in from being one of the first people to not take their GCSEs.
It was a bit of the same as in the class, honestly. It was a bit more difficult, but near enough the same, if you get what I'm saying. So it didn't really affect me too much.
Very stressful. We hardly learned anything. It was very hard. We did exams as well as them basing them off our schoolwork.
Were you happy with your grades?
Yeah, it was fair, yeah. We all felt that we weren't going to do well, but in the end I managed to do well.
You feel like you got the same quality?
No, it's definitely not, because the quality of the teaching and everything wasn't delivered to the standard of the money that was paid.
Do you feel like your university supported you quite well with the pandemic?
No, not really. The communication, especially when you're trying to communicate with the lecturers, trying to ask a question, sometimes they won't even reply.
If everyone gets vaccinated and we all kind of listen, then I think we should all be fine. But there is the fear of am I going to really be wasting my money for 3 years and I won't be even acting in person, and then am I going to is that going to impact my career in the future? What's the point of me going to uni?
One thing that surprised me was that when I spoke to recent or current GCSE students, all were either happy or not worried about their grades, despite the challenges. This year, teachers were tasked with grading students, which saw record high results. Unfortunately, students on their way or at university weren't so optimistic, so I was interested to speak to a prospective student of 2021 to hear their concerns. I'm here to meet Erin, who deferred her place at university last year and will be starting in a month's time.
Hi.
Hiya, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. Okay, so I've got a month left and I've already started packing because I'm that excited to go. I've got all my clothes and plans and even the stuff they sent 2 years ago about the course.
You're still going to do the same course that you were originally doing?
Yeah.
After almost 2 years out of education, I was keen to hear her hopes for the future.
I'm Erin, I'm 19 and I'm going to university this year to study history and sociology.
Was the plan always to take a gap year?
I was going to go to uni last September, but because of the pandemic, I thought it'd just be better to skip and wait till next year. I really wanted to find something to do. Every plan fell through, so I applied for Camp America about December last year. They sold it very much as it's definitely happening this year. So for 2020 entry, it's been rolled over to 2022.
So what's their refund policy?
If you want to bail, you don't get your money back.
So people who applied in their second year might not be able to go until after they've graduated, when they potentially have a job.
The perk of it is they get more money.
Depends if you have to quit your job to go, really, doesn't it?
Camp America costs from £600 to £800, but this wasn't the only one of Erin's plans put in jeopardy.
Talk me through the newspaper article.
In July, the University of Manchester released a statement revealing their plans for learning over the next year. Because they didn't communicate with students first, and students had to find out with the rest of the UK through a brief statement, it led to a lot of uncertainty and questions about how much of their learning was going to be virtual. Coincidentally, this statement was released a couple of days after first-year students paid their accommodation deposits.
I saw the news article when it was trending on Twitter when it came out that the university decided to do predominantly online. They phrased it as it's not online learning, but with online materials where you teach yourself. I felt like I'd wasted a year of my life.
How has the communication been with the uni?
So bear in mind it happened 2 weeks ago, the story, or I think even longer. It was only addressed this morning on an email.
After speaking to Erin, her experience highlights the effects that lack of communications between university and students can have. I wanted to speak to universities to hear their point of view. I've set up a meeting with Samira, who's the Student Union President at the University of Essex. She was a student last year, and now that she's working with the university, I'm hoping she'll have some insights into the challenges faced and what universities are doing to support students.
Hi, my name's Samira Katerina, and I'm the current Student Union President at the University of Essex.
So when regulations first got put in place, what approach did your university take?
The way they informed students, it was constant, there were daily updates. The university did do like isolation packs for students, and then they had feedback and they improved what type of boxes and food they were given to the students that were isolating on campus. All of our buildings were still open for students that were on campus to go to use, and that kind of tackled some of the problems around digital poverty. University's own support service, I think that was brilliant. I guess departments in the university didn't handle it as well as others, but I think the university acknowledged, understood there was actually parts that we can take from online learning. Honestly, I don't know how much more students can do with online learning while universities are trying their hardest to commit to go back to what was being delivered pre-pandemic.
Speaking to Samira, there's a few things that stand out. There seemed to be so much support available for students, and I can't help but wonder how the pandemic's been for young people not at university that struggle with their mental health. I'm on my way to meet your junior who struggled with his mental health during lockdown and is hoping to use his experience to raise awareness. What was it like when you first realised that your mental health was declining?
In March, there was an event that happened to myself. Ultimately speaking, self-care stopped. At the time, I began to verbally express self-hate for myself. All I ate was cereal and frozen foods. I didn't leave my room too much at all.
Do you think the pandemic had an effect on your mental health?
I would say maybe subtly, because really and truly, I probably would have gone outside more if there were less restrictions in place between the months of April and June.
If you could go back in time, what advice would you give to yourself to help you improve your mental health sooner?
See progress as a series of atomic steps, build momentum by taking step by step.
Hi, my name is Tanya, the founder and CEO of Championing Youth Minds. Championing Youth Minds is a youth-led non-profit organisation where we specialise in helping young people help other young people care for their mental well-being. We do this through free online resources, free online workshops, and we are hoping to deliver in-person workshops and talks in schools this coming year. Virtual learning has definitely been a factor which has affected lots of young people's mental health. A lot of children have different learning styles, and virtual learning is not equipped to accommodating for different children's needs. Also, sitting behind a screen is very draining for everyone, and for young people this has definitely affected their moods. A lot of young people have reported low moods. There are lots of different ways young people can care for their mental well-being, and this is a lot of what we talk about at Championing Youth Minds. This includes self-reflection, gratitude, journaling, going out in nature, taking a walk, doing more sports and yoga to really have that time off to unwind. I would also suggest mindfulness. All you need to do is focus on what you can hear, what you can see, what you can smell, and what you can touch.
The past year has put some students off university, and there are loads of options for students that don't want to go to university but still want to train and learn a new skill. I set up a meeting with Ewan, an apprenticeship advocate, to talk about what apprenticeships have to offer.
Hi, my name is Ewan and I am a Chartered Business Management degree apprentice for IBM, also studying with Kent Business School. As well as these organisations, I'm involved with others such as the Association of Apprentices, Amazing Apprenticeships, Not Going to Uni, Edge Foundation, and some of my greatest achievements to date have been speaking at the House of Lords. Apprenticeships are all about learning. You're not expected to know everything. The whole point is that you haven't had much experience, you don't have many qualifications, you just need to have a desire to learn. A common misconception about apprenticeships is that you don't complete meaningful work. I can confidently say this is far from the case. you complete meaningful work that leads to meaningful outputs for an organisation that puts a lot of support and resources into place for you. There are so many apprenticeships available these days. If you thought the only route towards a potential job or profession was through higher education at university, I would just say have a think again, have a research, because there's most probably an apprenticeship available. I know people working in business management, data and technology solutions, nuclear engineering, accounting, HR, marketing, architecture. Honestly, the list is endless, and this really does emphasise the strength of apprenticeships these days.
Another area that came up when I spoke to young people was internships, which have undoubtedly been affected by the pandemic.
There was lots of online opportunities, so I did a few online internships with the Bright Network. Instead of limiting to, like, say London or anywhere local, you can just apply anywhere. There's a lot of independence, so you don't really know if what you're doing is, I guess, correct. And then you don't really, like, for me, I didn't get any feedback from the company. I just was told I'd completed it, got my certificate. Like, it's still the sort of work that you'd be doing working for them. And I guess because it's quite a short internship, they have to, like, pack it all into a short amount of time.
I'm on my way to meet Paddy, the co-founder of COVID Interns, a company that helped connect students and graduates with organisations looking for interns during the pandemic.
Hello, my name is Paddy Ryder and I'm a recent Trinity College Dublin graduate and current student at Imperial. Alongside this, I'm pursuing an internship at an investment bank in London and recently co-founded COVID Interns. COVID Interns is a social enterprise that aims at linking university students and recent graduates with SMEs to help navigate the current COVID crisis. SMEs are small and medium-sized enterprises. Typically, they are smaller in stature, but interns gain greater responsibility and exposure. To date, we've made over 300 placements. These have predominantly been across Ireland and the UK, but also in the United States and Singapore, France, Germany and China as well. Further to that, we've been blown away by the support and publications that have wrote about us, such as the Financial Times, CNBC and the Irish Times as well.
What was the inspiration behind COVID Interns?
COVID Interns was born out of my own frustrations with the recruitment cycle. I was in a number of internship processes and they were being cancelled until firms had oversight to make hiring decisions. So I realised that there was a mass of students in a similar situation as myself, and also as travel bans were implemented, that there was a mass of students here that could be mobilised to help the local community.
Has COVID had an effect on the number of internships available this year?
Yes, recent Glassdoor studies showed that internships were down 50% this year and last year versus in years prior to COVID. So students have definitely significantly been disadvantaged versus their peers in years gone by.
Do you think there are internships available out there, but people don't know where to look or where to find them?
Most certainly, I think the success of COVID Interns has been built upon that. So our opportunities are within SMEs that typically students haven't considered for roles. Typically they look at larger organisations such as your big law firms or accounting practices, whereas in reality there are so many more opportunities within the SME space, and that's who we try and target.
Are your internships all online, or are there opportunities to work in the office?
It's a mix, so there are opportunities to work in person. However, the majority of our placements have been online.
Over the past month, I've spoke to some students that have actually found virtual internships to be quite challenging.
I think COVID has highlighted many changes in human behaviour, and one of those is how we recruit and how we work. Increasingly, there will be more and more firms that adopt remote working and working from home and the merits that come with that. You see the likes of Revolut and Salesforce adopting more practices that accommodate students or employees working away from the home. So we definitely envisage remote working and working from home to continue and even accelerate into the future.
It's been a while since I last worked on the documentary, and now that we're starting to go back to a sense of normality, we can start to see some of the long-term effects of COVID, and it's very obvious that some things are here to stay. Some students are still learning virtually. People that struggled with their mental health during lockdown are now facing the anxieties of going back to in-person, and the job market, though recovering, is still offering challenges to new graduates. Work from home is also here to stay, with 66% of employers adapting their workplace to accommodate a hybrid working environment. And I think Paddy was right to suggest that Gen Z, the future workforce, needs to become adapt and accustomed to this new way of work. Of course, when I started making this documentary about 6 months ago, a lot has changed. A lot of the people I spoke to were facing a lot of uncertainty and tough decisions, so I want to catch up with them to see if and how things have changed for them.
October, even though we're 9 days into October, has just been extremely busy. And September has just been chock-a-block as well. In this sort of time, I think I just need to be able to adapt and try and overcome these issues.
I've definitely been making progress with myself, I want to say. Again, seeing progress as a step-by-step journey, and I'm really happy to see how I improve as time prevails. Yeah.
It's been quite good. Like, I've met hundreds of people in like the first 2 weeks. Weird, because I deferred. I forget like I'm in the same year as some of the second years.
I've been applying for a lot of jobs, but I've managed to get an interview and I've been offered a job, which is great. And then I've also got another walk around potential interview tomorrow where they already seem like they want me. So I could be picking between two next week.